I had always believed that marriage was a partnership, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared responsibility. When I married Jenna, I thought I had found someone whose values aligned with mine, someone who would stand by me through life's challenges. We had two beautiful children and a home filled with laughter, love, and the routines that make family life meaningful. But all of that changed when I discovered the truth. Jenna had been cheating, not out of anger, not out of necessity, but to find herself. It started subtly. She became distant, distracted, and increasingly secretive. Phone calls she once took openly were now in private rooms. Late nights at work were accompanied by vague explanations that never quite satisfied me. I told myself I was overreacting, that perhaps she was stressed or needed space. But instinct told me otherwise. The tipping point came one afternoon when I found a series of messages hidden in her phone. They weren't casual or friendly, they were intimate, flirtatious, and full of personal affection that I had believed was reserved for me. My heart sank as the reality settled in. She had been seeing someone else. The betrayal was immediate and visceral, a punch to the chest that left me breathless and disoriented. I confronted her that evening. I remained calm outwardly, though my emotions churned inside. "Jenna," I said, holding back tears, "I know about the affair. I found the messages. You need to tell me the truth." At first, she denied it, stammering and trying to make excuses. But when I pressed, she finally admitted it. "I'm not happy," she said, her voice quivering. "I need to find myself. I need to explore who I am outside of this marriage. It's not about you, it's about me." The words hit me harder than the affair itself. "Find yourself?" I asked, disbelief lacing my tone. "So your way of self-discovery is to betray the people who love you, the family we built together?" She avoided my gaze, muttering about needing freedom and personal growth. The rationalizations were infuriating. Cheating was not self-discovery, it was a violation. A betrayal that forced others to deal with the consequences of her selfish choices. I spent the night thinking, weighing my options, and considering what was best for my children. Anger and sadness collided with clarity. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on betrayal, nor could I allow the children to witness continued deception and instability. My priorities shifted immediately to their well-being. The next morning, I packed essentials for myself and the kids. I did it quietly, deliberately, and without confrontation, because I knew that my calmness would be more powerful than arguments. Jenna awoke to find the house empty of us, the kids dressed and ready, and a note on the kitchen table. "I've taken the kids with me." It reads simply, "You need to deal with the fallout of your choices. I hope you find clarity, accountability, and the honesty you've been avoiding." The note was brief, but it carried the weight of truth. Jenna was left to confront the consequences of her decisions, the chaos she had caused, and the realization that self-discovery at the expense of others comes with a price. The following days were intense. Jenna called repeatedly, pleading, apologizing, trying to negotiate, and attempting to manipulate me into returning. But I stayed firm. My focus was the children, their stability, their routine, and their emotional security. I refused to let her attempts at control or guilt-shaming dictate our lives. I contacted a family counselor to help the children process the transition. Therapy sessions became crucial, not just for them, but for me as well. I needed guidance to navigate the emotional turmoil while maintaining composure and strength. It was painful to watch the impact of betrayal on my children, but I knew that shielding them from her actions and creating a stable environment was the most important step I could take. Meanwhile, Jenna faced the consequences of her actions in ways she hadn't anticipated. Friends and family, initially unaware of her affair, began to see the fractures in her life. She had to confront social judgment, strained relationships, and the isolation that often follows betrayal. The freedom she sought came with unexpected costs. The realization that self-indulgence at the expense of others often leads to profound personal loss through the process. I learned several important lessons. First, betrayal can reveal character in ways that are impossible to ignore. Jenna's actions demonstrated priorities, selfishness, and lack of accountability that could not be reconciled with the partnership I had envisioned. Second, protecting the vulnerable our children requires decisive action. Calm, firm, and deliberate steps ensure their security and emotional well-being. Third, accountability is a necessary consequence of betrayal. Those who violate trust must face the reality of their choices. As the weeks turned into months, life settled into a new rhythm. The children adjusted, therapy helped them process emotions, and I found resilience I didn't know I possessed. My focus shifted to healing, personal growth, and building a life grounded in integrity, trust, and stability. Jenna's journey, by contrast, was tumultuous. The fallout of her decisions, both in personal relationships and social circles, became undeniable. The person she sought to find was confronted by the repercussions of her actions, forced to face accountability, isolation, and the reality that growth without consideration of others is incomplete and often painful. Looking back, the experience taught me about the true meaning of responsibility, love, and self-respect. Betrayal is devastating, but it also clarifies boundaries, illuminates character, and provides an opportunity to reclaim agency. Choosing to protect my children, maintain my integrity, and step away from a destructive relationship was not weakness, it was an assertion of values, principles, and priorities. Months later, life has taken on a new shape. I have rebuilt routines, deepened bonds with my children, and pursued personal growth in ways that were impossible while entangled in deception. The betrayal, while painful, became a catalyst for empowerment, resilience, and the establishment of clear boundaries in all future relationships. Jenna's actions, though framed as self-discovery, serve as a cautionary tale. Freedom without accountability, exploration without regard for consequences, and selfishness disguised as personal growth inevitably lead to loss, isolation, and confrontation with the very realities one seeks to escape. In the end, taking the kids and removing myself from a toxic, unfaithful environment was the only way to protect what mattered most. Betrayal, while painful, can become a defining moment and opportunity to enforce boundaries, reclaim dignity, and ensure that life moves forward with integrity, honesty, and clarity. The story is not just about infidelity, it's about the courage to act decisively, the responsibility to protect the vulnerable, and the clarity that comes from refusing to compromise values for the sake of someone else's selfish desires. Betrayal exposes character, tests resolve, and ultimately provides an opportunity for empowerment, growth, and the creation of a life built on honesty, trust, and respect.